Hello, Trailblazers. Welcome to the Trailblazers Palette Podcast. I'm your host, Sancha Marshall, and today I'm thrilled to introduce a truly inspiring artist to the podcast, Qinghong Wei, the creative soul behind Starry Dreams Studio. Qinghong's artistic journey is nothing short of magical. Born into a family steeped in China's rich art and culture, she found her love for watercolour at a young age. Immersed in the delicate dance of Chinese brush and ink, her passion only deepened. With a background in architecture and a wealth of experience in arts, design, dance and theatre, Qinghong's life has been a canvas of creativity. But it was in the quiet world of watercolour that she discovered something profound. Watercolour, to her, isn't just a medium. It's a reflection of life itself. It's about flow, not control, a philosophy she applies both on paper and in life. In her studio, aptly named Starry Dreams, Qinghong doesn't just paint, she weaves dreams. She believes that everyone is the star of their life story, with unique dreams waiting to sparkle. Through her art, she not only shares her passion and skills, but also supports grassroots art education, adding shine to countless lives. Prepare to be inspired by Qinghong's extraordinary journey into the art of flow and the magic of watercolour. Qinghong, a warm welcome to the Trailblazers Palette Podcast. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
So Qinghong is a watercolour artist, and Qinghong, you're based in the Blue Ridge Mountains in America, is that right?
Yes. We are in the state of North Carolina.
Yeah, and I think I've seen some of your pictures and that. So you live on a farm, but you haven't always. So maybe you could just share with us your path that led to, I guess, where you're living now and to becoming an artist.
Yes, I think for me, looking back, I realized it has been a destiny that I got to take. I couldn't run away from it, but it's just a destiny. And I was actually born in China, and I was born into a very ancient family, and our ancestors can be traced back thousands of years ago. And they were actually women artists. Well, by at that time, it was really like thousands of years ago, and these are a tribe of women. The Wei tribe. Wei is my last name. So it's a Wei tribe of women who were ritual performers. So I call them the spiritual artists. Yeah, so that was my ancestry, my heritage, and going thousands year forward. So it's my time. I was born, and when I was little, I definitely showed some talent, quote unquote, in creating art. But for myself, I just found I feel a little bit different with my peers in the way I liked to see the interaction between human life and cosmic, like astrology, feng shui, the Chinese way of seeing the energy of the universe. So I was always fascinated by that, and it just makes all the sense to me. But when I talk to my friends at school, they were like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" So they even nicknamed me as the half fairy or something. It was just
I love that.
not a very good nickname, but So it's, okay. Not everybody thinks like I did. So growing up, I went to architecture for my college, and I knew I just really liked all this fluid, artistic way of being, but I had to have a footing in the real world. So I went into architecture, thinking it'd be a wonderful combination of art and engineering and building. This real life demand is there. But I must say, when I went into that education, it wasn't what I was thinking at all. So I think it was probably overly practical for me. And I found myself not excited by having to do all that big drawings, technical drawings, and the day and the night. I was, wow, that was probably not for me. So I decided to pursue advanced education. in the
Mm.
US, and I was really attracted by a program. It was a master program in the University of Cincinnati, and they were focused on green development. So basically, it means how we create or plan for human development in harmony with environment, with nature.
Yeah.
And oh yeah, I really like that. That seemed to come
Mm.
back to my passion for the universal living or something like that. So I
Yeah.
came to the States and I really liked. I found oh yeah, this was really excites me, and I did that education. Then I start to work in the States and start to do urban planning and community planning work. And when I did this work, it really helped me to be really with my passion is to create human communities, but also take into consideration of the social, cultural, and nature and environment together. And I really
Mm.
enjoyed that. But just going forward, I found my calling come back to art. So
Yeah.
art and community, I think that's the two things that somehow just calls me deeply. So
Yeah.
I went back to school, got my PhD, and studied art and community development. And
Mm.
that was a life-changing experience because it was through that study I was really how to say that I was really inspired at how art truly and deeply change people and change community for the better. And I was thinking, wow, this is exactly what I want to do with my life, just to engage art to help people and help myself to create a better world. So after that, I was converted from planner or architect or designer to just be an artist. So
Yeah.
yeah, mhm, that's
That's it.
that.
I love that that art is like deeply rooted in your
Mm.
history of your family, and it's sort of like obviously along your journey it's felt like a calling or a coming back to, that core of who you are. Do you feel like you've always had a really like a strong sense of self and knowing who you are?
Yes, actually, that's very true. And I have found that I can only do things that my heart truly loves. Like
Mm.
I do have a lot peer, like I'm a first generation immigrant to America. And a
Yeah.
lot of people in my constellation, they would have chosen an artist, not that
Yes.
practical, but I chose to do it anyway.
I'd love you to share more of your journey into the watercolors and like what led you to that love of watercolors and why you chose that particular medium.
Okay, yes, actually, that's truly along the line of my life story. So, I talked about how I was in this Asian family of artists, and when I was little, I started to learn the Chinese painting, which is a kind of watercolor painting. So I was really in love with that, and I studied that for a while. But when I went to college, went to the architecture program, we also were required to learn watercolor painting. But the education was all based on the Western aesthetics. So there's a lot of influence from the Western, the European painting style. So we were learning that, and I did horribly on that. And my professor, he was very upset with me, and I was very upset with myself. And even though I loved watercolor as a medium, I just felt terribly bad that I couldn't do it well in the way my professor wanted me to do. So actually, after college, I stopped painting watercolor for
Oh,
probably 10 years, and just
yeah.
because I thought I was terrible at it. And that was heartbreaking because, I loved art. I loved to paint. It was
Yeah.
the happiest thing for me
Mm.
when I was a child. So fast forward in all those 10 years, I actually never, even though I never painted again, I was always fascinated by watercolor. And in the meantime, I started to meet other people in my life, some wonderful colleagues and some just elders, mentors. And slowly they helped me to restore my faith in myself as a creator, as an artist. So I think about 10 years later, I just felt I wanted to try watercolor again. And this time I didn't want to learn from anyone particular, and I just wanted to just learn on my own and do it on my own terms. So I just really made a commitment now to paint for others' approval
Mm.
because that was happened in college. I tried to get my professor's approval so hard, but I was heartbroken that I couldn't do that. So I just this time I'm only painting for myself, and that had made a huge difference. And also, I just mentioned that when I was doing my PhD, I studied how art affects people and the community. And in that research, I discovered that art can be engaged in many ways, but there are certain ways when you engage art making, you are going to be nourished by art rather than being consumed or even crushed by art
Yeah, yeah,
excellence. Yes, and that's the way is to engage art as a way to affirm your own authenticity. So it is not the most important thing I have studied. My study has told me is to engage art to affirm the creator's truth, authenticity.
yeah,
So when I start to create watercolor painted again one more time, so I always engage that principle. Like I can give you an example. So when I start to first doing watercolor, and then I looking online and see what I want to paint. And at that time, it seems a lot of people are painting florals. It was really popular, and it seems there was one style, and everybody seemed to be painting that style. And at one side of me, I was like, okay, if I wanted to become popular, I better paint that popular style. But the other side of me was saying, but I'm not really passionate about that style. That doesn't really excite me. I
mm,
wanted to paint different ways. So I just become aware of what I was thinking and decided to honor my truth, what I truly want to do. So I just went the other route. I never really studied the more popular type. I just want to do what really makes me happy. So it was actually maybe even harder the style I decided to do, but I did it, and I continued to do it, and now I'm a lot better than I was starting off. So
yeah,
yeah, that's just I the 10 years later I started watercolor again, but this time just in a complete different mindset. One was in a young adult.
yeah, yeah. I love that you've found your own path with it because I think that even as we sort of do art and we progress, there is that a desire to, I guess, improve and get better, and it's very easy to, I guess, do a course or try and find a teacher to improve yourself. So I think it's lovely to hear that you've found yourself and your art and the path that you like to take, and then with your, it sounds like you're teaching, and that's what you probably try to enhance in your students, I would imagine.
Yes, yes, you are absolutely right. So when I teach, that's really what I'm doing. It's not about demonstrating my excellence when I teach or my
Mm,
mastery. I always demonstrate authenticity. Like I would tell my students that I'm nervous. I'm teaching, I'm demonstrating. This is hard for me. So you
mm,
may think I could do everything well. It's not true. I keep telling my students, and I show them the awful paintings I did to let them know this is the path. It's natural to be not good at it when you first started.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so, yeah, and they are much more relaxed when I do that. So they can start to feel safer to truly explore within themselves rather than being feeling the pressure to do something good. I always
yeah.
tell them, you're not here to do anything good. You're supposed to be really bad. And they would all laugh and have a great time.
Yeah, yeah, just and removing that pressure, isn't there? Because I know that as an artist, as you progress along, there is that pressure that we can put on ourselves that we want to be better and that we're not that yet and that we haven't reached where we want to go. And while that can be a good thing because it pushes you to develop your skills, it's a fine balance of finding that and keeping your love and your joy of what you're doing.
Yes, you said it so beautifully. And I have been enlightened by the Eastern way of art, especially the ancient Chinese way of art making. In
Mm,
that tradition, why people create art or make art is for spiritual growth, is to become a better person, have better awareness. So its belief is that art making or the genuine art making is a union of two sides. One side is spiritual awareness, the other side is technical excellence.
mm,
And the spiritual awareness will guide us on what technical side we want to develop. And as we're developing all the technical side, it's going to challenge us and again will inform us and enlighten us in that process. So, so yeah, that's actually why I teach. I
mm,
always, not just teaching, but with myself, like I mentioned earlier about that floral. I become aware. I have started to have awareness what I'm feeling that the world or the external world wants to see. And
mm.
then I become aware what internally I want to truly create and start to honor that. So yes, so this has become again my guiding principle as well to engage art, to cultivate awareness. And
Yeah.
so I grow as a person. And that has again just truly brought out just truly incredible growth within myself, both as an artist and as a person.
I love that, Cheng Hong. I think that's so beautiful. You talking about, yeah, that Eastern way of looking at art, and I hadn't heard that before, and it's really true, isn't it? It's like there is a very spiritual side of art, and there's a side that is incredibly soul fulfilling. I think
Yes,
that may be more where it falls into that sort of intuitive side and that feeling and emotion that even an artist can put into their work, and then a viewer can also connect to, which is, I've
yes.
experienced and I've heard other artists say the same thing. These, incredible stories that people end up telling you
Mm,
when they purchase or view a painting.
yes, yes,
And
yes.
I think that's a really beautiful thing. And it's sometimes just as exciting and fulfilling as the art itself. Do you find that?
Yes, absolutely. And especially that I had my earlier experience as a young adult trying to learn art, but
Mm,
I was totally crushed emotionally. So I
yes.
lost my hope in myself just because I got very negative external feedback. And as a young adult, I didn't know how to make sense of it. Now looking back, I certainly understood much better what was happened back then. So
Yes.
yes, so in this time around, I felt like I truly recreated myself as an artist
Mm,
when I just keep honoring my truth. And that's the hardest thing. But when we keep doing it, it's just so healthy. So
yeah.
it just makes you a healthy person. I think that's ultimately why or how we want to live our lives to be healthy,
Yeah.
mind, body, and spirit. Yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah. So going back to your experience that you had when you felt crushed by,
Mhm.
trying to achieve, I guess, maybe what
Yes,
somebody else saw for you. Do
yes.
you like, I felt like that might have been a nice thing to talk about, that sort of femininity. And
Mhm.
I know that you and me both have talked about this before, and that the connection between ourselves as women and nature.
Yes.
And I bring that up from what you said, because I feel like a lot of the systems where we're learning art and we're creating art, especially when it comes to skill, it's quite a masculine way of approaching it. And whilst
Yes.
that can be good, it's nice to have that femininity and emotion and softness and vulnerability
Mhm.
with ourselves. And I feel that that can kind of open up and blossom then within our art.
Yes, yes, that's so true. Yes, I definitely can tell you more of that. And with my own story, like when I was in college, we had this professor that teaches watercolor painting, and he was amazing at it.
Yeah.
But he just, at that time, he was very into developing a very masculine and a very strong and bold style. And I was just not like that.
Yeah.
And I remember that there were three professors, and there was another lady professor, and her style is really feminine and soft and beautiful, but
Mm.
she was not assigned to me. I just remember saying, "Oh, I wish I was her student. I would not have such a hard time." So
Yeah.
this professor, my professor, he looked at my painting, and he just was just stand next to me and say, "You need to be fierce, be brutal, be bold." And I
Uh-huh.
was just very lost because I was just
Because
a young
it didn't relate
girl.
to you. Yeah, which I
No,
could
not
understand.
at yeah,
If I
not at all.
Yes, because if I and that's why I think I feel a strong connection to you, Qinghong, because there is
Mm.
that softness, and I could imagine being in that situation that it would feel quite crushing, because I think that you could achieve that fierceness, that boldness, and all those things, but in your own way, and probably through a different gateway to maybe the path he
Yes.
was showing you.
Yes, yes. I guess as a generally, I that time I didn't understand why I had to be brutal at painting a teapot, for example.
And when
But
you said, very true.
yeah, but I tried. So I tried to be really brutal painting a teapot. And at one time, I painted the teapot so dark. And the professor was really happy. And he said, "Oh, you got it." And I was okay. Then it's the funny thing was my next door, another student was there. He heard the professor was praising me, and he went to look at my painting, and he's asked, "Why you painted the teapot so dark?" It wasn't that dark at all, and I didn't say anything because can I say, tell him because the professor liked it to be dark, so I did it dark.
Yeah, yeah.
I said nothing and didn't feel authentic to me at all. So eventually,
Mm,
I was still graded very poorly for that class by the professor. But yeah, but that I think in a good way, it kind
mm,
of put a seed in my heart, and I
yeah,
was just it's both very painful, but both was like why art making can be such a painful thing, why
yes,
it's supposed to be beautiful. And that
yeah,
thread, I guess, over the years took me back in my doctoral research when I can just study that. And
mm,
eventually I found, wow, because when I was taught, I wasn't honoring my truth at all. I was taught to honor one style. That was
mm,
it, which was not authentic to me.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and then that led to, and what a beautiful journey, that even though that happened, that you had then gone on to, doing your PhD and looking at that connection, at how art can so magically transform us as people and relationships.
Yes, and that must be done by authenticity. And
Yeah.
I can tell you now, the other thread that was happening in my life and eventually brought me back into watercolor, especially to honor the feminine.
Mm.
So after I did my doctoral research, actually, uh, after that, I began to work with a group of artists, and we work with communities, organizations, and what we did was to help people to tell their own authentic stories. Then we put together into theater, into performances, big and small. And I did that for several years, and I worked with many diverse communities in America and also in China. And that was incredible, uh, how to say, life changing for the participants and for myself.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I start to develop again a question, because all these programs I was involved in are all very demanding, very
Mm.
intense, and very masculine in a way. It takes so much heavy lifting to get any projects moving. And I felt like I was pushing a boulder uphill all the time when I was doing all that. And
Mm.
eventually I started to question or to ask the question, is there another way that's more
Mm.
effortless, that we don't have to go to a special project, special program to do? We can just do it on a daily basis, maybe for even 10 minutes. And that is when watercolor comes back into my life.
Mm.
And I realized that, yes, actually, in watercolor painting or any art making, we can do just that to honor our authenticity. So it can be just as simple as, today I want to paint something. I want to just play with my favorite color. So I just bring up all my favorite colors on my paper. It doesn't have to be an apple or a bunny. It can be just a play of colors.
Yeah.
And I did that for 10 minutes. And I also ask my students in my class, first exercise is to do just that for about 10 minutes. And after that, you would feel, and I would always feel, so much happier, more relaxed, and just
Mm.
in myself so much more. And
Yeah.
that 10-minute exercise is truly, in essence, honoring my truth, like what color I like right here, right moment, this moment. And I
Yeah.
just do that, honor that. And that has immense power. So yeah, so that has become my game to engage watercolor is now
Yeah.
to paint for approval, but always paint for myself.
Yeah.
And I think that is life changing for me, because later on, I went through another just enormously challenging experience to start this mountain farm. I left the city, got onto a mountain farm, and
Yeah.
I didn't stop painting watercolor, because watercolor is not another task I had to do. It's a way for me to nourish myself. So I kept painting, even though I painted so much less. But after 2 years, I was actually honestly stunned and shocked by how much my art levels have progressed.
Yeah.
Just incredible. So
Just from
there's
that
just
little bit
some,
each day. Yeah.
yes, it's just amazing.
Yeah. So it sounds like watercolor for you is a real, I guess, balancer of your life. Like it,
Mm.
would that be correct in saying that?
Yes, it's very correct. It's very funny. Not very funny, but it's very interesting in a
Mm.
way that my whole name translated or can be translated as this: the spiritual artist who celebrates water. So,
Oh, wow. That's beautiful.
yes. So, yeah, so
That's
now
so
I
perfect.
truly, yeah, it's very powerful now that I see what I'm doing, and that just everything, I feel like there's definitely a divine or a spirit, a greater spirit that's always here with me, no matter how chaos or lost I felt. I can somehow always come back to life, come back to my spiritual truth.
Yeah. That's so, and With you saying that, and I don't talk about it, I guess, very often with people, but in you saying that, I know that for myself, I feel that, like you feel that strong, like you
Mm,
were nearly a pulling or a center, would you call it? That
yes.
you feel
Uh-huh.
like when everything is maybe chaotic, or that
Hmm.
if you can come back to that, and art nearly gives you that way of coming back to that, I find quicker
Wow,
to
that's
to
wonderful.
yeah, to find that center and to find that calm place, if that makes sense. I'm not quite
Yes,
sure how to put it into words.
but I got you. Yes, I think that is so precious that you have connection with your center, because I know not everyone has that connection that easy yet. And when we have that connection, it actually sometimes life can be harder because you
Yes, yes,
can't
because
really put
if you
yourself
feel
back to sleep
lost,
again.
yeah,
Yes. Hmm.
yeah, I think that if you feel lost and you feel like you can't find that, yeah, like sometimes I feel like you can be out at sea, and there's this turbulence, I guess, and that
Hmm.
sometimes it's a bit harder to get back to that center than other
Yes.
times.
Yes, very, very hard sometimes. Yeah, I definitely had my fair share of all that in the past two
Yeah,
years.
I can imagine. So, tell us a bit more, Ching Hong, about your farm life, and like why you moved to your farm and what that journey's been like for you.
Yes, thank you so much for asking that question. And it actually connects with when I told you about I was doing all those heavy lifting projects. And at the end of it, I felt fatigue from doing all that. And I was wondering why. And a lady friend, she sent me an article. And that article is about the heroine's journey. You know the hero's journey, right? It
Mm,
talks about a man who just the inner growth, the path of normally a man, how that grows. And then this feminine journey, this heroine's journey, is very different. I think from my own experience that we embody both
mm,
feminine and masculine. We travel both journeys, but that feminine journey is less known. Anyhow, in that article, I learned that for the feminine self, that because we were born into this patriarchal world,
mm,
and we just are trained or conditioned so strongly to either live the masculine way or submit, conform to the masculine demand of the feminine. And however, as a woman like me, for example, just my own experience, I kept doing all that masculine way. And at the end of it, I naturally just will be exhausted
mm,
because I ignored my feminine. So that at the time of exhaustion, I would experience a spiritual death. So for me, that was basically I lived the masculine way to be a
yeah,
go-getter, to be a hard worker,
yeah,
and to push, to make things happen, never rest.
mm,
Yeah, I got some success, which is great, but I also got exhausted. I got spiritual death. So from that moment, I start to look at the alternative. I start to wake up to my feminine side and to reconnect and re-embody it. And
mm,
as my feminine side start to mature, it comes a time for me to reconnect with my healthy masculine side and create this balance between the masculine and the feminine. So
mm,
yeah, so that was basically the journey. And for me, it was when I was at the end of my major big project phase and
mm,
coming into watercolor. And I start to get access through watercolor to understand how to take a step back to receive beauty. In watercolor painting, magic actually happens when you are not controlling every brush stroke, but you have that pigment and water to create space for it to flow, to interact, and to let it happen on its own. That's the most beautiful and magical moment. And I'm learning all that with life through the painting. And
Yeah.
it comes to a moment that I felt like not just my head, my intellectually, or my painting, I want to be the feminine. I want to be deeper connected to the Mother Earth, which I see as the greatest feminine presence in human life. So I wanted to replant myself with Mother Earth.
Yeah.
And that is why both my husband and I, we wanted to leave the city and got ourselves a little mountain farm and to learn how to grow with Mother Nature, grow food, raise animals, grow plants, and to understand how nature really works.
Mm.
So yeah, that is why we started all this mountain farm experience.
Yeah. And you have such a beautiful harmony in, I guess, your journey, and even the way that you share your journey, um, and even like with hardship and your art and that connection to nature you have. And I mean, if you follow Qinghong anywhere, you'll see that you do have a love of animals, Qinghong,
Mm.
don't you?
Mhm. Yes.
And that nature is very important to you in that relationship and connection. And maybe you can share with us your love of nature and how you find, I guess, that balance of, being on your farm and doing
Mhm.
the hard work, because it probably is a lot of hard work, and
Oh,
balancing that
yeah.
with your painting and what you paint and how you find that.
Yes. Yes, thank you. And I think that once again, is when we create genuine art from the heart, it becomes a mirror to help us see through it and see into ourselves more. So when I start to learn watercolor again on my own, I start to notice that I really like to try to paint flowers, but my flowers turn out way harder than when I start to paint animals. So for
Mm.
some reason, I noticed whatever I was painting, a little bird or a bunny, they all seem to come alive very easily. And I was like, what is that? I didn't really, I wasn't truly aware that I had a connection with animals. But when that started to happen again and again, and then when I saw my animal paintings become just the progress so much better than my flower painting. I was like, oh
Yes,
gosh,
yes.
there's something there. So I start to just honor that and start when I created the farm and we have just a lot of animals, mostly
Yeah.
small animals. Some at one time we had three cows, and I just it was a lot of hard work. But at the end of the day, when I saw my like my geese or my ducks walk around and they come to me and talk to me like I knew their language, I probably know a little bit, and
Yeah.
just yeah, see my bunnies, I just felt I was living a fairy tale. I was just truly happy.
Yeah.
And then I remembered this that after, I guess, I don't even know how long this happened, but whenever at night when I had hard time to go to sleep, I would just imagine lying in bed and imagine this is before I got to the farm. So I was still in the city, but I would imagine in bed that I was surrounded by little animals. I was sitting under a big tree on the grass, and there's a little river, and there are all kinds of like little bunnies and deers and maybe some bigger animals. They're all around me, and I would feel so relaxed, and I would go to sleep much easier. And now I don't know if anybody else does
No,
that, but
oh, it's so funny. Whenever I talk to you, Ching Hong, I do truly feel like you're such a soul sister, because there are things that
oh,
you say that I can really connect to. Just in your visualization there, and even when you're talking about your connection to animals. I remember when I was a flower girl when I was younger. I there's stories that I actually chased all the bridesmaids around because I was carrying a frog around on my arm. Like I've always, I've always loved animals, and
oh,
I'd never really, I guess, thought about that as I'd gotten older, and maybe
yeah,
that connection as to what we paint.
Yeah, but I hear you. Like when we're growing
Yeah,
up, we forgot what our
yes, and
heart
it's
truly,
that
yeah,
that
desire.
joy of I see it in my daughter, I guess, that she sometimes reminds me of what it used to be like to think that way. And
Mm,
when I'm talking to you, but no, it's not silly at all. I use visualization so often, and I find those kinds of things, and I've done it right throughout my life, and even still do, where I imagine things that are calming, and often that is I draw on that for my art. Those feelings of, imagining I'm at the farm growing up because I grew up on a dairy farm, and I can
yes.
relate to what you're saying because we had rabbits, we had those things, and they gave us a lot of joy.
Yes, yes, I think that's so true. That's why at the end of my life in the city, I was actually feeling very depressed. I was at my weight was at the lowest. I was
Mm.
just very depressed, didn't have much appetite. But now, after coming to the farm, even though I work so much physically, I have gained a lot of weight and I'm much stronger.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Isn't
and
that
then
interesting how that
mm,
that sort of those our external environment, it manifests in us and our health and things like that. Yeah.
yes, and I do remember a moment. It was probably a few months or maybe a year into leaving the farm here. And our farm was not a beautiful place to begin with. It was actually in pretty bad situation, and we had to do so much work to clean it up and turn it around. So it was still not looking that great at that time. But I remember for the first time, I don't even remember not how long. For the first time, I felt content. Like before that, I was in the city, I was pursuing all the big projects, like titles and positions and success. I remember when I had a success, I would be really happy. But that
Yeah.
happiness didn't seem to last long. I
Hmm.
never had the feeling of contentment. But here, just standing at our little farm, just seeing the little animals and the trees, the flowers, I felt content. And I was both happy and surprised to notice I was feeling contentment for the first time, I guess, as a grown up.
Yeah, yeah. That's beautiful. And we do. I think that, yeah, we can kind of, in the busyness of life and what we're pursuing, don't often stop and think about that, do we? So it's lovely to hear you, yeah, I guess, that you've found
Yes.
that and that you've been
Mhm.
able to create that. So, Qinghong, with you're very in touch with that femininity, masculinity, and you're creating. How do you find balancing the creative side with the business side of art?
Mm, yes, I think the balance comes when I begin to take the business side as a creative side as well.
Mm,
So like for example, doing marketing, it's so important to do marketing. And as a normal person, I'm a shy person. I certainly felt intimidated to talk to people or put my things out there. And then I think all this spiritual growth I had tried to cultivate as I was doing art start to help me. And I have learned a mindset. So whenever I felt uh, I was doing something out of fear, for example, if I was thinking, okay, if I don't post this, then I'm afraid people are going to forget about me.
yeah,
That this moment I become aware that I was doing something out of fear, and fear can be a very healthy way of understanding the world and cope with the stress or the dangerous situation of the world. But it doesn't have to be the cause of everything. So whenever I feel this fear, I would ask my question. So what would you do if you do this out of love? So so come back to the same question. out of love, I would think, okay, my post have a wonderful message to say that this dog painting is not just I'm excellent at art. It's because I try, I overcome fear, and I put in so much effort, so much love. So this dog painting, for example, becomes so good. So I'm posting that out of love, this
Mm.
story of love I want to share with people. So yeah, just like that, when, for example, when I'm doing my marketing, instead of thinking, oh, I'm don't know if how people are going to respond, I would just think, I'm putting it out of love. If this promoting a class, there must be people who can really use this class to support their own wellness, and they want this to happen, and it's going to be a great thing for them. So I'm offering this. So it's not about, oh, I don't have money, I need to make money. Yeah, I'm getting this class. So yes, so I guess I'm trying to create marketing, for example, or my classes as an offering of love. So I feel even as a shy person, I'm very, very okay to share myself and share my class and tell people about it.
Yeah, I love that way of looking at it actually, because I know I struggle with that. Um, taking my art as the hobby it is, and then marketing it has always felt like I'm only just now maybe finding my feet with that. And you do that so well, Ching Hong, that, keeping your authenticity, and it comes through in all that you do online, with your YouTube channel and your website and in your posts. So it's lovely to hear how you go about doing that.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
So,
And
and no, you
oh,
go.
and yeah, I also have a technique. It's such an interesting, intuitive technique that I also always engage whenever I have a question about my business development. And actually, I don't know if you're right-handed or left-handed. So
Right.
okay, great. I mean, I am right-handed too.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
have learned this way to access our own inner guidance. And for me, is to paint with my left hand, which is my non-dominant hand.
Yeah.
So I would do this whenever I have a question and I have no answer for. I would just have this question and in my heart, and then I start to paint with my left hand and see what's happening. So I can give you a story just recently.
Mm.
um, so I, after the pandemic, I have been mostly or teaching online. So that had been a few years, and I had taught a lot less during our farm initiation process. So I think the last time when I was teaching the online class on Zoom, I only had 6 people came, and before that, I normally had maybe 20 or 30 people.
Right.
So, yeah, after the class, I was like, this is just quite unusual. And at part of me felt quite defeated because it was really low turnout. But the
Yeah.
other part of me was like, there must be something there, something that deeper, some guidance in that situation. So I just start to paint with my left hand with a question: what is this going? Where is this my business going with my teaching business? Then I start to paint, and very interestingly, I see myself start to paint a road, like a zigzag road, like
Mm.
going towards top of a mountain. So it's like I'm going, starting from left side of the paper and going toward the right. Then I take a U-turn and
Yeah.
going upward, and just U-turn again and again, but going forward, going upward, and then close to the mountain. And and eventually I arrived at a place that's very beautiful. And after painting it, I got it. So it's not I came to a dead end of my teaching, but it was a time I need to take a turn. So
Mm.
what was that turn I need to take? And I knew that it was a time for me to start to teach locally. So I had never done that before, really, but it was a time for me to teach locally. And
Mm,
I started to do just that. And the local class has become very successful, not just financially successful, but the great thing was I got to meet so many wonderful people in my community, and they
mm,
have enriched my life so much. And I just felt super happy whenever I finished teaching. So it has been such a wonderful experience. And not just that, when I started to teach locally in person class, I had to paint bigger because, not as online lessons, I can focus of the camera on my little
mm.
painting, and now I
Yeah.
have to paint really big for people to see. And
Yes.
that challenged me and got me out of my comfort zone to paint large paintings. And I'm really at a skill level that I can go into further details with a big space. And
Mm.
that's just the right thing for me. My next level of artist development is to go create the bigger paintings with more stories in it. So yeah, so that's an example how I go about my business,
Yeah.
but going back with intuitive or spiritual guidance through art.
Yes, yes. And having all that in together and
Yes,
seeing how, yeah, naturally through your art and that it's evolved.
yes, yeah, yes.
How do you feel that your art or art, because that's your sort of area of expertise with your PhD, how do you feel that art impacts people and the stories around that from your local class, say?
I feel that there are two folds in my involvement with art to create art and to teach art. So for me, when I create art, first and foremost is to nourish my own inner light so that it's never going to be depleted, this inner spring, but always replenished as I create art. In the art that I put out in the world, I want it to be able to shine light on humanity, faith in the good things, good life, and the good spirit in people, in animals, in nature. And I think we can never have enough of that. So I'm just adding my tiny bit of that into the world, the
Yeah.
tiny bit more shine on all the good things. And when I teach art, I truly feel it's a way, like how art has been for me, is to help people realign with their own truths as they create art. So yeah, so it's like this adjustment of this external driven or over masculine driven approach to life. When people come into my class, we're creating art, but in essence, we are honoring and nourishing our inner truth,
Yeah.
realign better with our inner truth, and especially learn the feminine way of creating life.
Mm. Yeah, that's beautiful, Qinghong. And how or if you want to, if we talk about a little your some of your projects that you've
Mhm.
worked on, like I know you do the pet portraits with your love of animals, but you also have, I noticed, a series of thriving women and portraits and stories around women.
Yes, yes, that's actually again the life-changing and game-changing experience for me. Because when I started that series, I wasn't really great with my artistic skills. It was actually at a time I did watercolor for a little while, but I didn't feel it was going anywhere. So I almost was thinking, okay, maybe I shouldn't take watercolor too seriously as a profession.
Hmm.
But then at the same time, it was also I really want to I really want to reconnect with the feminine. At that time, I felt like I didn't know how to live as a woman. I knew how to live as a man, but I didn't
Yeah.
know how to live as a woman. So how do I know? How do I learn about it? And I had no revenue or avenue to learn about it. So I figured, okay, there's one way I can do it. Is I want to paint the women in my life that I felt inspired by. And I got to know many women in my life. And who should I start first? Some wanted, I told my friends about my project, Thriving Women. I wanted to paint women, and some told me, "Oh, you should paint this woman. She's a pioneer, doing this work and that work, accomplished this and that." But I felt like I didn't feel like I want to paint women who accomplish all that, but I felt I was attracted to my belly dance teacher. So
Yeah, someone you
again,
have
that's
that heart connection with.
yes, I those are so this my first woman in my series was my belly dance teacher. She just so full of life as a woman. She truly embodied her full spectrum as a woman.
Uh-huh.
Just
Yeah.
so incredible, so beautiful, kind, gentle, and powerful and sexy. And I
Yes.
love that. So I started with her
Yeah.
and I felt like, and I gave the painting to her as a gift, and she loved it.
Mm.
And I felt like I was doing some just a still kind of childish illustration in a way, a little drawing, but we both loved it. And from there, I was okay. I want to do this, and because I want to paint people I love that inspire me, I wanted to learn better how to paint portrait. So I started to learn to paint portrait more seriously,
Mm.
and something magical just happened. I just so I don't even know. Maybe the spirit, the divine feminine, was helping me. So
Mm.
I painted this girl. It's just wow, turned out so beautiful, and I
Mm.
was really shocked by how beautiful that painting came about, and that gave me confidence. So I just kept going and going and going and painted every woman that while I had a chance, different women of all kinds of life, and yeah, and that actually took my artistic level to the next level,
Yeah.
and I became committed to watercolor again. Things are really progressing, and I think more importantly, truly is I start to know how to live as a woman. So that's
Yeah,
great.
yeah. Which I
Yeah.
can identify with because I know I've painted a couple of women I've had that heart connection with and that have inspired me. And
Mm.
I think that it's a very transformative experience as an
Mhm.
artist to do that because you connect with somebody and you're studying their face and things like that. But also for the person you're painting, that that can be daunting at first, I know,
Yes,
but
yes.
having your portrait painted and how is this artist going to see me and portray me? But I think
Mhm.
that the connection that you get from
Yes,
doing that is quite magical, isn't it?
yes, yes. I think it's truly a gift to both. I know every lady that I painted, they always, I think, I feel, yes, they
Yes.
feel very honored and respected and seen in the painting. Yeah, by
Yeah.
the painting. Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that as an artist, painting faces is probably one of the most difficult things, isn't it?
Yes, very
Yeah,
true. Yes,
so I think that, learning that is very challenging and fulfilling.
yes, yes, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
And so on that note, Ching Hong, I guess what advice would you have for living that fulfilling life and following your dreams?
Hmm. The first thing that came to my mind is to have a practice that always you commit to, and that you know it will help you to connect deeper with your truth. Like for me, it's actually meditation and Oriental dance. I have done that for probably over 15 years or something like that. And that is a practice that helped me to come back to my truth every time I do it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's lovely. And I know that you know, that getting out into nature, the meditation
Mhm.
side of things, it can really fuel you, can't it, to I guess to balance out and handle the rest of life.
Yes, that's actually, let's see. I feel like, yes, actually, we have so many dimensions as human beings. We have physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. All these beings we embody. But a lot of times we got really consumed by our emotions and we try to solve every problem intellectually.
Mm.
But a lot of problems actually can only be transformed or transcended at the spiritual level. So that is why I feel like a lot of times we may be getting really stuck in a situation trying to fix things, but it never really got fixed. It is
Mm.
because there's a spiritual shift that wants to happen. So when we have a spiritual experience or practice, like going into nature or have meditation practice, that can help us to come into our truest and highest self. So we can be like a bird, has a bird eye view on things and choose the right pathway. And a lot of problems I have found, the one I practice spiritually, the problem just dissipated by itself. So I no longer even need to take effort on them. And I can focus on my journey and focus on my mission, my soul's mission.
Yeah, that's so true, isn't it? I think getting that, what you said about that bird's eye perspective, sometimes we can be so up close and in things that
Mhm.
we need to get that little bit of distance to see the problem clearer, I guess you would say. And it seems to work itself out rather than we can't always work it out ourselves. It's those things that are like sort of
Yes,
watercolor. It flows and it will do what it wants to do. So we just need to let it.
yes. Oh, you said it so beautifully. Yes.
And so, Ching Hong, do you have any, I guess, in sort of wrapping up, any sort of future pursuits that you are um, where you want to head, I guess, with your art and with
Mm.
your life?
Yes, absolutely. So for my art, I do have this project that after the Thriving Women, I want to create a series that I now call it Our Neighbors. And I want to paint our neighbors that who are different and just again shine light on their truth, their spiritual beauty. And I feel that we are at a time that a lot of times, like we can be really close with our next door neighbor, but we
Mm,
don't really know their stories. And everybody has a story.
yeah.
And a lot of divides, a lot of conflicts come from illusion that we feel the other one was different from us,
Mm,
or they may hate us or dislike us. But that can just be an illusion. So I want to be part of this effort to just shine light on more of the truth, how that in the bottom of our heart, for each human being, we all have this capacity to love and be loved and share love. And that's what I want to paint and want to create this new series. Yeah.
that's beautiful, Ching Hong, and I'm sure you will do it just so beautifully well as you do with your projects that you've done. And I love that you're doing that with your art and you're shining a light on, I guess, people and the
Yes.
connection with people that wouldn't
Mm.
maybe normally be on our radar, I guess. And
Mhm.
and that's what I'd hope to do with this podcast too, is that, you know,
Mm.
knowing these amazing creative people that are doing amazing things like you are in their lives and that we don't really hear a lot about. I felt like,
Mm.
when I'm on YouTube and there's a lot of that self-help advice, it's always kind of people who are in your face, and it is that very masculine hustle. And so it's really lovely to have talked to you today and hear that more softer feminine side of doing things. And I've actually loved chatting to you. It's been amazing.
Oh gosh, oh, I feel very, very the same way to be heard. And you're such an incredible interviewer. You really hear the story and really guide the conversation. And I just felt incredible talking to you. Thank you so much. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so
And thank
much.
you so much for being a guest and being on the podcast. And if people want to find you, Ching Hong, I will pop your, you've got your website and your Instagram, and you also have an amazing YouTube channel as well and online classes, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. That's very kind of you to say so. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you for joining us on the Trailblazers Palette podcast. We appreciate your support. Don't forget to subscribe and share if you enjoyed the episode. Stay tuned for more inspiring conversations with incredible guests. Keep blazing your trail, and until next time, stay inspired. This is Sancha, your host, signing off. See you soon, Trailblazers.